America, it's time for some straight talk. You love your phone. Look at you. You hardly put it down. But you don't love that expensive wireless plan, do you? So what if I told you can keep that phone network and number 2 for a lot less? Well, this is me telling you. It's time to switch to Straight Talk, guys. Bring your own phone and get unlimited plans starting at just $45 a month on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are. We're back and better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and we are getting closer. T-minus 2 days and counting to the fight, which might well be the worst sporting event of all time for a million different reasons, and yet I can't wait to see it. Plus, NFL teams making quarterback decisions, a pitcher losing a heartbreaker, and Golic, someone in Massachusetts, won the Powerball. They keep winning these Powerballs, and it keeps not being us.
Well, do you know who lives in Massachusetts right now?
Yes, your son and your daughter-in-law.
My son, Jake, and his daughter, and his. My daughter-in-law, Jenny, have not heard from them. Now, I'm sure they're up already because they are running their Orange Theory Fitness that they own out there. So I don't think it was them because I'm sure I would have heard from them. I'm hoping maybe somebody else opened up and they're still asleep and don't know yet. I'm holding out hope until I hear from Jake or Jenny that they did not win it, but I have my fingers crossed that they won $700 million and that they would share some with me.
You know, the thing about playing Powerball, I never do it. I never buy lottery tickets or anything like that. When we used to do it as a staff, when Bubba would steal our money,
stole all the money. Yeah.
I would throw in my $20. But what's funny is the one time I bought them, I was with a friend of mine. I think I told you this story, and he bought them. And we were getting sandwiches, excuse me, for the kids at like a place where they sold the tickets.
Sure, yeah.
And he bought some, and I thought to myself, if he buys them while I'm here and he wins millions of dollars and I don't, I'll never forgive myself. So the one time I bought them, I walked away thinking, I got like, I don't know, maybe about a 20% chance of winning this thing.
20%?
Like, that's what I think to myself. I feel like if I played this thing, I would have a real chance to win. You have no chance to win.
Well, you have a chance. But you have a minuscule chance. I mean, I bought tickets. Did you not buy them yesterday?
I did not, no.
I did. And you know what you do? It's like when I always talk about, to put it in sports terms, when the 1% from college make it to the NFL, but 85% think they are, you know, the percentage of you winning it is minuscule, but a high percentage of us all think about what we would do with the money. You would buy your island. You start to think about different ways you would spend the money that you know you're not going to win, but you think about it anyway. So now we all curse the one person that won it. Though I'm always happy. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like when one person, when it gets that high, and it's like when we would play bingo, big money bingo over at Foxwood Casino, and it's a huge like payout for the game, and you get like 10 people yelling bingo. It's like, oh, hell, I got to share it with 9 other people. Here, man, I mean, it's one person, $700 million, whatever the takeaway is. I don't know, probably, 400-some mil or whatever it's going to be. But that's pretty sweet.
Absolutely. So some lucky person in Massachusetts is holding a ticket worth $700 million.
God, I hope it's Jake and Jenny. I hope so much it is. You think they'll share with me?
Well,
what would be the obligation? If one of your kids won $700 million, how long would it take for them to say, Dad, Mom, I'm giving you X amount of money? Well, and would you expect them to?
And what would the X be? Like, I could easily see them, like, I could see my kids taking me on a nice trip to play golf someplace.
You don't think they're giving you any of that money?
Define giving.
Like saying,
writing me a check for $100 million.
You know what? Hey, let's when we give the ticket, let's say it was all of us that bought the ticket, and we'll split it.
Yeah.
You know,
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you won the Powerball, are you writing a check to your mother?
To my mother?
Correct.
I'll give my mom some money.
How much money?
I'd give her.
If you won $700 million, how much of it would you give to your mother?
Listen, she plays these little internet gambling places at $20 a time, so I don't need to give her a lot.
She'd be real happy.
Whenever she goes to the casino with us, we give her more money and say, go play the big-time slots, and she doesn't. She sticks to, like, the nickel slot, so I don't need to give her a whole lot.
The current jackpot paid out over 30 payments over 29 years would be $480 million after taxes. Which is the way you could do it, and Mark Cuban says you shouldn't do it. Coming up later in this hour, I want to wait till Mikey gets here, and Mark Cuban offered, before there was a winner, extraordinarily good advice, I thought. Well, I can't tell you that it's good advice. He's a billionaire, I'm not. But extremely interesting advice for whoever wins, like serious advice.
Oh, yeah. Listen, when you have a TV show out that's all about lottery winners that blow all their money, there's an issue.
Yeah.
So, there should be some real thinking behind it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a person who is not accustomed to having practically any discretionary savings.
Here's $480 million.
Yeah, that's you want to talk about a life changer. And unfortunately, it didn't happen to us, so we're here, and there's no island. Let's go off the top. And we start with Rich Hill. He had himself a tough game. So, Rich Hill, you want to walk through this thing? He's got a perfecto going through 8.
No, he didn't walk through anybody.
Okay. Well done. Go ahead. You take it.
Yeah, he had a perfect game actually going into the 9th. Then there was an error in the 9th. So the perfect game was gone, but he still had a no-hit bid. The only problem is his team didn't score either. So it's zip going into the 10th. They bring him back out for the 10th inning, and he gives up a walk-off home run. A walk-off home run, unbelievable, lost a no-hit bid. Josh Harrison is the first player in Major League history to end a no-hit bid with a walk-off home run. One other time he had a walk-off in extra innings. You go back.
Harvey Haddix. I'll know this story to the day I die, right? The pitcher was Harvey Haddix?
It doesn't even – yeah, it was. Harvey Haddix. Yeah. I'm sorry. 1959.
It was like 12 innings or something.
13th inning. And there's an interesting little tidbit to this one. So 1959 – the Milwaukee Braves, when Joe Adcock hit a walk-off double in the 13th inning. Keep the emphasis on double. In the 13th inning off Pirate starter Harvey Haddix, as you said, the hit was actually a home run. Henry Aaron was on base and didn't run, just walked off the field because it was a home run, so he didn't round the bases. So Adcock only gets a double out of it. Aaron cost the dude a walk-off home run. It went in the books as a double.
For some reason, I didn't remember that. If Aaron didn't come home and touch home plate, at that point, how does the run score? There was a runner on base before. So there were multiple runners on base.
Multiple runners on base.
I remember the story of Harvey Haddix from my childhood.
Yeah, and Aaron just walked off. He didn't round the bases all the way. So, someone had to score before that. And the dude only gets a double out of it. Aaron cost him a walk-off home run. So this should have been the second walk-off home run to bust up a no-hit bid in extra innings. But Rich Hill's got to be sick after that.
So, again, to be clear, because we now sidetracked it well into the famous Harvey Haddix game, Rich Hill has a perfecto through 8.
Right.
A no-no through 9,
right,
and then gives up a walk-off home run in what was otherwise a scoreless game in the 10th inning to lose.
All the Dodgers have been doing and scoring runs all year, and Rich got to be going, dudes, tonight? You picked the night? Really?
It's quite a night.
Off the top.
What else? All right, Manny Machado had a walk-off home run last night as well.
Yeah, did pretty well for himself. It's his 4th career walk-off home run, and 2 of them have come in the past 6 days. He's the second player in franchise history with 2 walk-off home runs in a span of 6 days, joining Fred Lynn, who did it in consecutive days in May of 1985. So, nice night.
Off the top.
O's closer, Zach Britton, had his save streak come to an end. He had saved 60 consecutive opportunities, and last night that came to a crashing halt.
Yeah, that certainly did come to a crashing halt. As you mentioned, Energy had a 7-5 lead going into the 9th, allowed 2 runs on 3 hits, a walk and a wild pitch before being pulled with the score tied. It was his first blown save since September 20th, 2015. Eric Gagne holds a record in Major League, 84 consecutive saves. So Britton is done with his streak.
Off the top.
The Jaguars are going to give the ball to Chad Henne. He will get the next preseason start over Blake Bortles, putting him firmly in the driver's seat to be Jacksonville's starting quarterback when the season opens.
So we heard yesterday when Hugh Jackson for Cleveland named Deshaun Kaiser the starter in preseason. Again, the 3rd preseason game is the dress rehearsal. It's when the starters are going to start the most. So, but the difference here is Brock Osweiler is not going to play, leading you to believe that they're going to don't want to put him on the field with a chance to get hurt. They're going to try and get somebody else to pick up his $16 million guaranteed contract. Good luck with that. So that'll be interesting. The difference here, Chad Henne starts. Blake Bortles will play with the first unit, so they're going to split time, but Henne gets to start, and as you said, clearly puts him in the driver's seat.
And
off the top.
Speaking of quarterbacks and jobs, Colin Kaepernick supporters demonstrated outside the National Football League's headquarters in Manhattan yesterday. More than 1,000 people were there, many of them wearing Kaepernick's old San Francisco jerseys. crowding the steps of the NFL's offices to show their solidarity with Kaepernick and with his cause.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously, we've been talking about this forever. A bunch of people got in front of the offices saying the same thing, talking, reading poems, being mad at the situation. The NAACP has called for a meeting with the NFL and Roger Goodell to discuss the fate of the quarterback and where it's all going to go. And all that being said, the nice support for him, I don't think it's going to help him get a job anywhere.
I absolutely agree. It's what everyone's talking about. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. I certainly support the people going out to support Colin Kaepernick and standing up for him. Here's the thing. There are two different ways that a person can be in the position that Colin Kaepernick is in. One of the, and by that I mean not having a job in the NFL. One of them is if all of the owners had gotten together, if there was some sort of agreement among them, spoken, whatever it is, if the league was somehow involved in, you can either be blackballed by 31. There are 31 owners.
31,
right?
Right. And the decision maker in Green Bay, right?
I don't believe that there is one blackballing of Colin Kaepernick going on. I believe there are 31 of them. I believe each team is individually deciding not to sign him, and as a consequence, I don't know exactly what good comes from meeting with Roger Goodell, who can't make Steve Bisciotti or Robert Kraft or Woody Johnson or any of these guys sign Colin Kaepernick if they don't want to. So I think that this is all great. It's all great to go out there and show support for Kaepernick. But in my opinion, I don't think any of the owners will – I don't think this will have any impact on them at all.
No, look at the situation. So when Colin Kaepernick first does this last year, everybody is outraged, even though, and they don't like – the method he's been going about it, even though one of the methods, oh, by the way, is sending plane loads of food and necessities to where people need it and raising, what is he at, $800,000 of $1 million right now?
Another 100,000 were reported yesterday, yeah.
But people don't like some of his actions, and people were boycotting or not watching NFL games for that. Now it's completely gone the other way, to where if he doesn't get a job, there were people at the rally saying, stop watching the NFL and boycott the NFL because he's being discriminated against. So it's completely the other way. To me, the bottom line of this is just what I said and what Greeny said. Roger Goodell is not going to force an owner, the guys he works for, to give Colin Kaepernick a job. That's not going to happen. So basically, when I say your listeners, viewers, anybody who's really interested in this, your option is to put your actions where your mouths are if you don't want to, and don't watch. You had people saying, turn off the TV, don't watch football. Then that's what you do. All of this, while it is all nice, is not, I don't believe at all, going to help give Colin Kaepernick a job. So if you truly don't like what the league is doing, fans, you have a voice. You've always had a voice, and that voice is don't pay for product, don't show up. And if enough of you do it, then it could lead to something. But normally what happens in a lot of different sports is enough people don't do it, and there's people to fill those gaps, and the machine just keeps moving on. That's how it works. So you do have a voice. You're allowed to express your voice. But other than that happening en masse, I don't see any kind of forced issue where any owner is going to give Colin Kaepernick a job if they don't want to.
And as I was watching the coverage of this yesterday, here's the thing that jumped to my mind. When people say, well, you don't have a right to get a job in the National Football League. Here's the problem. The National Football League is not like any other or almost any other job. If Colin Kaepernick was a lawyer, I'm just using the whatever example immediately comes to mind, and there were 31 law firms out there that wouldn't hire him because of his peaceful protest, there would be thousands and thousands of others that would.
Yep.
But in this particular case, if you are a professional football player and you want to work in this country, there's only one place you can do it.
Only 32 spots to do it in.
And so he's basically in a position now where he is not able to work as a result of this. That's it. I mean, that's what's happened. He's not able to have a job because he stood up for something that he believes in. And I don't believe that even people who are I fully understand people who are completely put off by the method that he used to try to make his point. Right. I get it. I hear you. I've heard from you. I've read your tweets. I understand your point. It isn't my job to tell you you're wrong. We have a disagreement on how we view the situation. But bear in mind that what we're basically saying is this guy now, we're telling him you can't work. You can't have this opinion in America. You cannot go out there and make a stand for something you believe in, and you cannot have a job in this country doing that. I can't believe anyone thinks that's okay. That's the part of it I don't understand.
I agree.
That's the part of it just doesn't seem okay. If he was in almost any other line of work where there were millions of opportunities, this wouldn't be a problem because someone would hire him.
Someone would hire him.
One of the 1,000 people standing out there in the street yesterday would have had the ability to hire him. But this is a tiny, tiny, tiny little place that is a monopoly in this country. There's the only real place you can have this job.
They can decide to not hire him, and they're not going to get in trouble for it.
There's nothing anybody can do.
Nothing anybody can do.
And there's nothing Goodell can do. For people who are saying, I see these guys are telling me that this is not like the Michael Sam situation where Goodell might have strongly suggested to some teams that it would be good for the league if you make a move like this. There were teams willing to do that.
Right.
There obviously isn't an owner willing to do this because Michael Sam was not considered an impactful player. There were teams that could use Kaepernick.
Right. That's exactly right.
Chad Henne is about to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Look at the backup situations. I was reading a story with Marty Morningwig talking about Ryan Mallett and his search for the elusive consistency when everyone knows that the elusiveness in that is that he stinks, and he always has, and he always will. And yet Kaepernick cannot get a job because these guys won't sign him. So he's not allowed to work. They're basically telling him, you can't work at what you do. You can't practice what you do in this country because of your protests. And that's the part of this that bothers me.
It is. And unfortunately, all the protests aren't going to get him a job. And the meetings with Goodell aren't going to get him a job. An owner has to make the decision that says if the situation arises where we need a quarterback, go ahead and hire him. And that hasn't happened, and not many people think it will happen. So there's only one way for, if you're really displeased with that, for a fan to show their displeasure, and you absolutely know what it is.
So that's where we stand as far as that is concerned yesterday. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. You can test drive Snapshot, even if you have insurance with another company, see how much you can save before you switch. And then there is the countdown to MayGregor, if you will, to Mayweather and McGregor. I've started shortening to that. I saw it somewhere. Is that not being commonly used?
No, that's the first time I've ever heard it.
It is, really?
You're joining, like the couples?
Yeah.
Like that you're doing?
Well, no, I saw it.
That's exactly what they're doing, like when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie or Ben Affleck and J-Lo and all that and stuff.
What were Ben Affleck and J-Lo again?
Wasn't that something?
They did have a name. Bennifer.
So I'm not really a big fan of doing this.
Well, whatever. So it's Mayweather and McGregor.
What will we be? Golic, Greeny?
Oh, I thought you were combining yourself with Buster Olney for a second there.
Greenlick? I mean, so let's not do this.
There's none of that that's working for me. No. We're Mike and Mike. Right?
Yes,
we have the same name, and it's worked out pretty well over the years. Anyway, Floyd and Connor are getting set to go into a ring on Saturday. But first, they had to have a stare down, and Teddy Atlas, because this is how we do things now, was analyzing the stare down.
Why not?
It's a pretty good analysis, actually. Here's Teddy.
He basically was sending a very subtle message that I caught, and I'm sure McGregor caught it, that, hey, all the fun and games is over. I don't need to curse. I don't need to do any more of that stuff. You're mine. I am where I belong. I am where I dominate. I am where I am king. You can use all that stuff you want, and you used it for the last 2 months. It ain't going to help you now. Psychologically, big win for Floyd Mayweather before the fight.
Listen, I love Teddy Atlas.
Me too.
But seriously? So we think that Conor McGregor, in staring down Floyd, had that same thought process and thought, oh, God, I'm in trouble now. I mean, is that what we're – listen, I like a stare down as well as the next guy. I like to see, do you look him in the eye? Are you looking away? I mean, God knows I've watched enough Rocky Balboa stare downs to understand where his head was at in the game. But holy smokes, breaking down the old stare down. You got to love it.
You got, for those of you who haven't seen it, you have Mayweather wearing glasses. You have McGregor trying to get a little talking.
They both have glasses on.
Now that I see it, I see McGregor has glasses on, too. I was looking more at Mayweather because I was focused on him as Teddy was talking about how he didn't move. And then, there it is. McGregor took the glasses off. I thought I would have.
And got a little closer to him. You really have to make sure you use some mouthwash or chewing gum. McGregor's chewing gum because you don't want to have bad breath there.
I don't think they mind. I think in some ways that's almost a good thing. Any way that you can repel the other guy, just put him at a bit of a disadvantage. Have him thinking about that a little bit.
So don't brush your teeth up until that point?
I wouldn't brush my teeth
garlic.
for a week leading into that fight. One way or another, they're finally getting ready to step into the ring. And listen, I get it. There's every reason in the world to be repulsed by this event. They're both impossible to root for. It's a terrible event. It will probably be awful. Mayweather fights are always boring, and McGregor has no business being in the ring with him. And yet, I can't wait to see what happens.
I can't wait to see.
I don't know why, but I can't wait.
And something was just added to it to add to my entertainment value of this,
which is
a belt.
Yeah.
Did you see there is a belt? This fight obviously means nothing. There's nothing riding on it but two guys getting way, way richer than they already are.
May I?
You may.
There is one thing. Do you see the Marciano family is upset that this is going to count as his 50th win.
50th win, right.
So there is kind of that riding on it. If you agree with it, it's almost like should there be an asterisk next to
right.
50-0 in that his 50th win was essentially an exhibition. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the belt, the championship belt of no championship, because this isn't for any real WBC championship, but the WBC has created a special prize, and it is the money belt. The money belt, it has on it 3,360 diamonds, 600 sapphires, 300 emeralds, 1.5 kilograms of 24-karat gold on green Italian alligator leather, or otherwise known as a Patriot Super Bowl ring.
Listen,
but that's the belt they made up for this thing.
All the more reason to be just repulsed by this event.
I want to know what that belt is worth. I want to know how good the diamonds are. I want to know what that thing is worth.
It is once again another reason. The ostentatious display of this is nothing, and yet we are just standing here making all the money in the world, so much so that we have created a belt made of money.
A belt called the money belt.
The winner.
Called the money belt.
And yet I can't turn away. I don't know if it's like a car accident that you see it happening and you can't, for whatever reason. Yeah. And I can't wait for it to be over. But I'm going to watch it on Saturday
Mock me all
night.
you want. I'll be sitting in front of the TV.
The best of Mike and Mike.
All right, we are Mike and Mike, and now we go Mike Cubed, as Mike Golic Jr. has joined us in our studio this morning. And I was very amused as I sat here and just listened to the two of you chatting during the break about what you would do, each of you, if you had won the Powerball yesterday. Now, you're still both holding out hope that Jake Golic and his wife Jenny may have won this.
One winner in Massachusetts. Jake and Jenny, my son and daughter-in-law, live in Massachusetts. So we're hoping for whatever reason that they're not up yet and they have won the Powerball. How great would that be?
I hope they're just sitting at the state lottery office right now waiting for it to open this morning so they can go inside and get it taken care of.
The only thing is they would have told us. I mean, we have this group text that goes nonstop all the time. They would have told us. So that's my fear that they didn't win, that they're up, working in their Orange Theory fitness thing, running that whole thing. And they're up already and know they haven't won. That's why I'm just holding out hope for some reason that they're still sleeping and don't know yet.
I account for user error because God love Jenny, but this seems like a situation where knowing her, she would have the winning ticket and kind of have forgotten about it or misplaced it. We know her enough at this point to know that that is a distinct possibility.
Fair point.
I tell you what, I mean, listen, and if you have the $700 million Powerball ticket,
don't tell anyone.
But if you forgot it or misplaced it, we have a problem. I mean, that to me, that strikes me as a real problem.
My last offseason in the NFL, when I was with the New Orleans Saints, the Powerball got up to a pretty big number that summer, and so I think it was every Wednesday whenever they would do the drawing, I would have my ticket and I would come in before it was announced, and I would tell everyone in the locker room, I said, "Hey man, it was nice knowing you guys because the minute I get this and the minute I cash this winning ticket, you will never see or hear from me again."
What would you have done? I was listening to you talking about this during the break. You would just disappear. You wouldn't feel the need to work or do anything. You think you could occupy your days,
you're 27.
your time?
I mean, at some point, you're going to get bored or you're going to blow all the money.
No, listen, I can joke about a lot of the things that I do, but the first thing you do is all the smart financial stuff of make sure I'm just going to get this to the proper people and say, listen, I don't ever want to have to work a day in my life. I don't want the next of my bloodline to ever have to worry about money again. I said, tell me what the number needs to be for that. Tell me what the number needs to be for me to just live off interest if I want to for the rest of my life, and then show me what the rest is left over, and I'll figure out to do it there. First thing I'm doing is buying a private jet. I'm never sniffing a commercial airport again in my entire life.
I think for a lot of people that whether they buy it, lease it, whatever, but that's going to be their mode of travel forever. And I would agree with that.
Private jet right to my boat.
Oh, geez.
150-foot yacht.
I'll put a dock on my island for you so you can park your boat.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, the island would be a great play.
I'd have the island. I'm going island. I'm going full metal island. Now, here's the thing. I'm much older than you, and he's much older than both of us. So the point of it is I do wonder about that. How many people out there, how many people within the sound of our voice right now, if you won some insane amount of money, the Powerball, would continue working in the job that you have? Like, you might like it. You're laughing.
You may like it. Listen, I am 54, and you know, I'm certainly getting closer to the 19th hole in a drink than the 27-year-old who's just starting in this. So we're in different spots of what we would do in that situation.
Like, I'm thinking, if I were a professional golfer, if I were, well, Phil Mickelson's towards the end of his career, if I were Ricky Fowler or one of those guys, and I won $700 million, I wouldn't stop playing golf. I don't think maybe I wouldn't work quite as hard, but maybe I would work even harder. I don't even know, but I don't think I'd stop doing that.
The thing is, you look at other things like that, though, and you look at golf, and for you, it's a leisure activity. It's something you look forward to as fun in your life. Everything we know, because a lot of people look at the job we do and say, oh, I would love to do that job. We always do that with somebody else's job, and that's not to say I don't love this job. That's not to say you guys don't love this job, but you're always going to perceive it differently than looking at somebody else's stuff.
What would you do, Golic?
In all honesty, I would not get up at 4 o'clock every morning for the next 3 years, and I would call games on the weekends. I would do college games on the weekends.
See, that's my point. You'd still do something like this.
But just on the weekends. Yeah. I've called college games a lot, but I always did it along with this job.
Right.
So it was always radio all week, radio, TV all week, studio shows all week, and then go do games.
Listen.
Now it would just be a game. Now I go be out in Arizona, probably do Pac-12 games, just hang out on the West Coast, fly in on my jet, fly out on my jet, and enjoy life that way.
It was, in those days, it was like on Friday morning, Golic was in Morgantown.
Oh, yeah, some little rinky-dink radio place doing the show.
I mean, those were the days. But, yeah, see.
Sounds like what you're going to be doing soon.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of people would enjoy what they do or would find something else that they enjoy doing.
Right.
If money was no longer a motivation, what would you do? That's the question I should be asking.
That would be it, yes.
If money was ceased to be a what percentage of people do you think in America work because of the money? 90-something
Oh, yeah,
percent,
I think
right?
a ton of people, yeah.
So there's only a tiny percentage of people in America who have enough money that it wouldn't make any difference if they stopped working, and yet they choose to continue to. But, I mean, these CEOs that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, they keep going, they keep doing it. They're still working harder. They work harder than almost anyone else you know. They're constantly traveling and all that kind of stuff, so they keep working.
It's the idea, though, that we always hear about with NFL guys where they say, you know, you pay me for during the week, Sundays are for free. Like, turning on the microphone and coming and talking, that's great. It's doing any of the preparation beforehand. It's watching and breaking down tape. It's all those other things that once I'm at that, why am I going to bother to do that stuff? Right. I'll show up and play if you want me to, if you're still going to allow me to do that. But besides that, I can find other ways to monopolize my time. And doing all of that stuff in the public light, to me, is too much risk. Once I've got that money, I don't want to be in a place where someone else can access me. That's why the island is tremendously appealing. I don't trust anyone else within an inch of the money I've got now. Why am I going to do that with that kind of dollar
If you
amount?
won the $480 million, how would you split it up amongst the family? Would you give us any?
Split it. That's rich. Witness protection. You will never see me again. I am gone. Audi 5000, bro.
Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Brett Okamoto has some ideas about that. He'll join us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Brett, Mike and Mike here. How are you today?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Great. We're trying to figure this thing out. We're trying to make a comparison like MMA is to boxing as what is to what. The closest we could think of was maybe it would be like a decathlete. Whoever wins the gold medal in the decathlon, then trying to compete in one of the individual disciplines that fall into that, the javelin throw or the 1,500 meters or whatever it might be, trying to compete against the best in the world at that, and how good would they look trying to do that? How close could they come to competing on that level? We're trying to figure out exactly what to expect from McGregor in the ring against Mayweather in a discipline that he has never trained in before.
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, it's difficult to come up with a comparison. Maybe a rock band taking a shot at like a jazz concert or something. It's the same sort of thing, and they're great musicians, but it's also quite different, especially to the people who know jazz. So I think that's what we're going to see is that Conor is a great fighter, but how much of a boxer is he? And he may be a good boxer, but when you put him in the same ring with the best boxer of the last decade, or even beyond that, well, then he probably is not going to look all that good.
So in all of the various ways of people trying to figure out how McGregor can win, we just watched a video of Teddy Atlas saying, get him in the ropes, don't chase the head, hit him in the body. Maybe you can catch him with an elbow like Tyson used to do, and things like that. In you looking at this and either seeing and or talking to others, what do people say is the best way McGregor is going to win? Is it just that lucky one punch, or is there another way?
Yeah, well, I think the first answer is what you just said, the one punch knockout power. I mean, that's the one thing that, Conor can hang his hat on, is that he is a hard hitter, and there is some dispute over, how much that matters when you're going into the boxing discipline. You can have all the power in the world, but if you can't hit the guy, and if you can't hit the guy correctly and time him correctly, there's more that goes into a knockout punch than just raw power, but at least we know that Conor definitely has raw power. If you go beyond that, a lot of it is the clinch. There is a clinch in boxing. The referee is supposed to break it up quickly. Robert Byrd is a referee. He's going to be the referee in this fight, and he's known for letting the clinch go a little bit longer, letting guys work on the inside, and that favors Conor. It won't really win him the fight. He's not going to knock out Floyd Mayweather, inside that clinch, but being the bigger guy and being so savvy, and that's what he does. I mean, that's MMA. It's just dirty tactics. It's infighting. It's head position. It's knowing how to hook your arms across the other guy's arms and rip on his shoulders and make him tired. And Floyd's 40. So if you're trying to build a case, how does Conor wear him down and then give him an opportunity to land that big punch? Well, then that's a possibility, is up in the clinch.
We're Mike and Mike. Brett Okamoto covers MMA for us, and we've certainly heard from a lot of people who are boxing purists not being enamored with the idea this fight is taking place at all. We've heard from Rocky Marciano's son on his feeling about it, potentially getting Floyd to 50-0. I remember the last time we talked to you, you said there were a lot of MMA purists who weren't crazy about this. How would you gauge that now? How would you gauge where your average MMA hardcore fan feels going into the fight 2 days away?
Yep, and the reason I felt a little bit hesitant about jumping on board with this fight is that Conor's still in his prime. The boxing people who aren't happy about seeing this fight, Floyd was never going to come back and face the great fighters of his weight class anyway. I mean, the guy was essentially retired. He's coming back because Conor McGregor offered an opportunity of a lot of money against a guy that he's going to be a obviously heavy favorite against. So there's not really a lot of harm in seeing Floyd Mayweather come back for this fight. But for Conor to walk away from his sport where he is a champion with a lot of different title challengers out there, that was my only hesitancy, is that, is he going to go make hundreds of millions of dollars and then, we're going to see him fight once a year from now on. But, since that time that I spoke to you guys, I've heard from coaches, I've heard from Conor himself, Conor's agent, Dana White. This guy does still want to fight. He intends to come back to the UFC. Everything that I have heard has put those concerns that I had to bed, that this is a guy who wants to come back, participate in his own sport, defend his title. And so fine, I'm happy to see this fight. Then I'm happy to see Conor make a whole lot of money and then come back and do his thing in mixed martial arts.
Do you believe that? I mean, and now he'll have the ability to do that, to ask for an absolute king's ransom. And if Dana White or whoever says that won't be available, there's part of me that doesn't think that he may still be involved in the sport, but not in the ring anymore, try and take a higher position in that. I listen, you talk to way more people than me, but that was one of my first thoughts is I don't see how this guy steps into the ring unless they answer all his money demands.
Yeah, Mike, I agree with you. And it seems like there's been some good progress on that. I mean, Dana White just recently this week was asked, hey, Conor's talked in the past about owning a piece of the UFC. You've never done that before for a fighter, but Conor McGregor is not every other fighter. Would you consider that? He publicly said, yes, if there was ever a fighter that would demand something like that, it is Conor McGregor. I asked Chael Sonnen that actually just yesterday. I asked him, in 2018, is this a big story, do you think? The UFC and Conor McGregor not being able to come to terms financial terms on his next fight because he's gone off to boxing and made all this money. And Chael told me, no, these guys are competitive. Either you want to fight or you don't. And if you want to fight, you do realize that not every fight can't be a boxing match against Floyd Mayweather. Chael said that I made bigger paychecks earlier in my career than I'm making right now. I fought, this year, Vanderlei Silva at Madison Square Garden. That was not the biggest paycheck I've ever gotten, and I'm still fighting. So, Chael didn't think it was going to be a big deal. And again, speaking to people around Conor's team and the UFC, it seems like they're in a good place now. Now, that can always change. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like it's a huge concern.
Brett Okamoto covers MMA. He's with us on Mike and Mike as we're T-minus 2 days and counting to the fight in Vegas. So yesterday was the final pre-fight news conference. They had that 4-city tour. There's certainly been a lot of hype and a lot of talk. What will you remember the most about this, about covering this? Forgetting what happens in the ring on Saturday night, but now that all of the pre-fight hype is basically behind us, what do you think was the most memorable piece of it? And do you think the whole thing was a good thing, or were there things about it that you think ultimately did some damage?
That's an interesting question. We haven't seen the weigh-in, and usually the weigh-in is something that sticks out in your mind just because it's the day before the fight. It's the final time these two guys stare down with one another. So I have high anticipations for that. To be honest with you guys, Fight Week has not been all that great in my estimation. They have these promotions, these different promotional events. They have grand arrivals where the fighters show up and give the fans the opportunity to see them in public. And then they have the press conference. And these have been low-key affairs. They've been, I think, kind of poorly organized. The grand arrivals, there was no stage, so the fighters showed up for maybe a grand total of 15 minutes, and the fans couldn't even really see them. They were behind barriers that was really far away. I thought it was a missed opportunity because this is supposed to be like a cultural event, and I mean, it didn't feel like it when you were at these. It just felt like disorganized sort of chaos. Up to now, I would say the most memorable part for me is probably just seeing Conor work out at the UFC headquarters. I mean, here you have the UFC's biggest star in the UFC's brand new headquarters in Las Vegas, and all of his work is in a boxing ring. And then you just remind yourself that he's fighting Floyd Mayweather. It's not like he's taking a step aside from MMA and saying, I have to box. It's a passion of mine. I can't end my career without doing this. He's jumping into a fight against the greatest fighter that's out there in his professional debut. And I mean, just seeing that in person, him working just on boxing has just been very surreal.
All right, Brett, what's your prediction?
I think it's going to be interesting and intriguing to watch for a few rounds. Just because I really want to see what Conor's strategy is. I want to see how he approaches this fight. He is a smart guy, very confident, knows how to perform under bright lights. So you got to give him all that in the opening rounds. But once Floyd figures a guy out, and this goes for all of the best boxers he's ever fought, and now a guy who just doesn't have the experience. I think Floyd's going to figure him out after maybe 2, 3, 4 rounds, and then it's going to look real ugly. I think Floyd will knock him out before the end of the fight.
Brett, we've really enjoyed your work on this thing. Thank you so much. Enjoy the weekend, and we will be in touch again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, guys.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Rich Hill of the Dodgers in Pittsburgh last night. Herbie, did you hear about this?
I did.
He's got a perfect game going through 8. Mm-hmm. They commit an error behind him in the 9th inning, so he has a no-hitter going to the 10th, and he gives up a walk-off home run to the first batter he faces in the 10th inning, Josh Harrison.
I would have destroyed my teammates for not giving me any run support.
Dodgers lose it by a score of 1-0. Elsewhere in our Sports Center headlines, Colin Kaepernick supporters demonstrated outside the National Football League's headquarters yesterday. More than 1,000 people were there showing their solidarity with Kaepernick and his cause. And finally, Jaguars quarterback Chad Henne will get his team's next preseason start over Blake Bortles, which would put him in position to potentially become their starting quarterback this season. SportsCenter with Mike and Mike, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless.
Other wireless providers say they're going to cut your bill in half. Who knows what kind of coverage you're going to get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get nationwide coverage on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks, and their no-contract unlimited plan is just $45 a month.
All right, you've already heard a little bit of them. It's our pleasure to welcome them in as they are coming to your city, but first they're coming to our set. Getting set for another terrific season of College Game Day, Kirk, Herbstreit, and Desmond Howard are here with us to talk college football. How are you, fellas?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself? My man over there looks great. Go Vikings. God. That's my guy. You look at Go Vikings.
There you go.
My
God. Red and blue, baby.
Yes, sir, baby.
Yeah, feeling good.
How much weight has he lost? I mean, he's lost so much weight, it's not funny anymore, unfortunately.
He's lost half of himself.
Yeah,
for
sure. Yeah,
I'm up to great work.
I'm at my high school weight right now.
Are you really?
Wow.
I am, like about 235, 240. So much so I feel I look good to where early in the show, Greeny said I look like I'm marinating in my own fat.
No, that's not what
that's what you said.
I didn't say you looked like you were doing it. I suggested you would do that if you won the Powerball. Here's the quick question. I don't want to take up any of our time because there's so much college football to get into.
Yes, sir.
But this is the question of the day. If you won Powerball, and it turns out now they're correcting themselves, the winner is from Chicopee, Mass., not from Watertown, Mass.
I know what Chicopee is.
But either way.
Oh, man.
If you won the Powerball,
480 million they're going to walk away with.
Would you when you continue doing your job? Would you continue doing what you do if you all of a sudden had $500 million?
I probably would,
without a doubt. Without a doubt.
You know, I would maybe buy an NFL franchise. That might be fun.
Not with that.
You only have about a quarter of the money.
No, that's true. That's true. But you can become majority owner, not buy the whole thing.
See, I think a lot would have to. Where are you in life? Are your kids younger, older? Do you want to be around with them all the time?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think a lot of that would go into, like, my kids are older. I wouldn't want to see them anymore. I'm done with them.
It's probably a mutual thing.
Exactly.
What would you do, Greeny?
I wouldn't continue doing all the things that I do.
Say what you would do.
I would continue writing books.
No, you'd buy an island.
Oh, if I had island money, I'd buy an island.
Yeah.
Forget it.
And write books while you're on your island, right?
But my island has to have a golf course.
You write books.
I would write
Seriously?
books. I like to write books.
I wouldn't read books
on your
if I won
island.
480.
I'd be done with books.
I would hire somebody to read books to me.
Golic doesn't read books anyway. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
Cliff notebooks are for?
That was like the time you said you were going to give up coleslaw for Lent. You've never eaten coleslaw in your entire life.
Gave it up.
That was a good one, though.
Right.
Good move.
Let's move on from all of that. So college football gets going this Saturday. There are actually two ranked teams playing this weekend. I got the game notes from our research department for week 0. But it's obviously the following week that everyone is looking forward to in a huge way. And Alabama, Florida State on ABC is the first monster game on the schedule. But there are quite a few that weekend and more. So Alabama ranked number 1 preseason. Are they the best team in the country going into it again, Herbie? Yes or no?
You know, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but high school football, you have some exhibition games. NFL, you have some exhibition games. College football, you have inter-squad scrimmages, and all of us on the outside have magazines, and you call coaches and you talk to people, but even the coaches don't really know what they have until they actually see it themselves. I was at Alabama, actually, with Fowler just a couple days ago, and if you're going by how they look, Alabama's a team to beat. I mean, they look impressive. Now, they've lost so much over the last couple years, but, Des, I still think going in on paper – you have to give Alabama the nod as the team to beat, without a doubt.
I think Alabama's the team that gets the benefit of the doubt. I mean, as long as Nick Saban's there and they're still bringing in those 5-star recruits, and like Herbie said, they just kind of retool. They lose a lot, but then they bring in a lot. And it's not just the recruits, the stars behind the recruits. It's the way, in my opinion, that they develop these young men. Once they get on campus, they mold them into, Crimson Tide football players. Despite whatever you did in college, that was great, but this is another level. So I think that the number 1 ranking right now is deserving. But, I mean, they're going to be tested by Florida State, though.
A side note, Brian Dable comes over from the Patriots, tight end coach, around Bill Belichick. Go from Lane Kiffin, who is very successful as far as a play caller and putting production and points on the board, to Brian Dable, who's a Nick Saban, Bill Belichick type of guy. That, I think, will be very, very good fit for Jalen Hurts and for that offense. I
agree, especially in Jalen's second year. It would have been interesting in his first year, but being his second year. Let me ask you both this. This is a little out there, but because I just thought of it and you mentioned it, Herbie. You're right. High schools will go practice against one another. NFL, I think these coaches would rather do this now. It's done way more than when I was playing, practice against other teams than the preseason games. Why not in college? Teams go, like Notre Dame goes to Culver, the military for like 4 days. Why couldn't you? And we know Jim Harbaugh will go anywhere. Why wouldn't colleges maybe go to other colleges and they practice for a couple days against one another? Do you think that's something that could be feasibly done?
I think it could be. I don't know if there are any rules or regulations the NCAA would have against doing something like that. I would love to take a poll and see how many college coaches would be for something like that. How many would be against it? I like that. I like that model. That sounds
get away
great
from that
to me.
Preseason thing because you're going to the regular and maybe just a chance to hit a different jersey, a different team.
I think it makes sense logically. I do think as fans of this game, there's something that's kind of unique. As much as it's frustrating, it's still kind of neat that you don't know what any of these teams really look like. Like Ohio State with J.T. Barrett with Kevin Wilson coming over to call plays. Everyone's assuming that this is going to help J.T. Barrett and Ohio State. Right. But until you see it against Indiana on Thursday night next week, you really don't know.
Same thing in Michigan with Pep Hamilton coming over now to help. Yeah, Wilton Spade. Yeah, so you're right about that.
It's kind of exciting when all of a sudden it counts, and it's the first time you really see it.
Herbie and Des are here. College Game Day coming back for another huge season. We're brought to you by Goodyear. Tires as hardworking as college football's most blimp-worthy athletes. Goodyear, official sponsor of the college football playoff. I want to ask you both, and Des, particularly you because it involves Michigan, that Michigan and Florida is another one of the huge games on that opening weekend.
Yep.
And Jim McElwain was somewhat jokingly, but I think somewhat honestly saying he's frustrated because Jim Harbaugh has not gotten him his roster yet. And apparently Michigan has not updated its roster since August 30th of last year.
Yeah.
Is that normal? Is that gamesmanship? Is that sort of...
That's Jim.
That's Jim Harbaugh.
But no one else does that?
Normal.
No.
Not that I'm aware of, but,
so
Jim
why
Harbaugh's
is he allowed to do that?
cat.
I mean, is there a rule that you're allowed to do that?
It's just like, why was he allowed to take his team to Rome? He doesn't look inside the box. He thinks outside the box. And a lot of other coaches, they just don't do that. So it's not like there's a rule against it. So obviously, because he's not going to be fined, he's not going to be sanctioned by the NCAA, so it's okay to do it.
Well, why does everyone else do it? If you're giving information to the other team, which is in theory,
because a lot of people are just
team.
followers. They're not thinkers. They're not, they just follow a trend. They just do what everyone else does. That's why Jim Harbaugh is so unique and so special and so rare, and why we talk about him so much. I mean, who thinks to take their team down to IMG Academy for spring break? It wasn't against the rules, but Jim Harbaugh did it. Who takes their team to Rome for spring break? It's not against the rules, but Jim Harbaugh did it. Everyone is so used to just following the status quo, and they get in their comfort zone. They just do what the next man does. Jim Harbaugh is a different cat.
I think the bigger issue and topic here is he likes to put the distraction or the story on him and take it off of his players. That's just him. That's what he does. Whether you agree or disagree with it, all I know is the culture that he has created from where they were the last 7 years before he got there, they're back. They just lost 43 seniors. 11 or 12 guys are in NFL camps. They'll be as good this year as they've been. And they're only going to get better with the way he's recruiting. He's got a quarterback coming back this year. People are almost forgetting about Michigan because they lost so much from last year. They lost 10 starters on defense. Yeah. You know what? They'll be just as good this year with Don Brown and the way he blitzes and the defensive line that they have. So we could talk about him, laugh, tell stories about what he's doing. All I know is Michigan's winning game. They're back to being a top 5, top 7 type of team year in and year out.
So here they are with Florida. We know Florida State, Alabama. We see Ohio State, Indiana. While schedules we know are made in advance and they still are on down the road, do you think we're getting to the point where it will be more big on big, that schools are going to decide they have to do this for the committee to show that?
We hope so.
I think Ohio State's an example last year with that big debate about Penn State and Ohio State. And the only reason Ohio State went ahead of Penn State is because they beat Oklahoma and Norman.
Right.
So then you can make a case for Washington. Washington, I can't remember who they played, but it was Portland State and a bunch of nobodies in their non-conference.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And they ended up winning. And that's the Art Briles approach when he was at Baylor. Hey, we're going to play nobody in the non-conference, and if we're undefeated, I dare the committee to keep us out.
Right.
I think from talking to the committee and talking to ADs and coaches, it's smart to play a heavyweight. It's smart if you're interested in getting in the top 4. It makes more sense to go the path of Florida State's playing Alabama. I mean, Florida State playing Alabama is great for all of us, but if you lose, if you get blown out, that's a different story. But if you lose and you lose a 3-point game, you're going to drop a couple spots in the polls. You're still right where you want to be.
Build that back up.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see more. The smart ADs and coaches will do more and more scheduling where they play the powerhouse.
The counter to that argument to me, Des, is you leave yourself no margin for error, right? Because I understand the thinking, well, yeah, if we sweep our conference schedule, even if we have that one loss, let's just use Florida State to Alabama, that's fine. But now you're counting on the fact that you're going to win all of your conference games. You don't leave yourself really almost any margin to lose a conference game because frequently there's going to be no two-loss teams in there. I think I would go the other way, to be completely honest with you. I think I would play nobody.
You're a gambler like that. Take the easy way out.
But I think you're underestimating what it does inside a locker room when you say to Michigan and a bunch of new young players, we're playing Florida in Jerry Jones' stadium week 1 versus we're playing a MAC school, with all due respect to a MAC, and a home game.
Right.
Traditional opener for a Big Ten school. No. We're going down, and we're playing one of the big boys. I think if you say to Florida State, would you rather play Appalachian State, or would you rather go to Atlanta and play the biggest monster in college football? 100% of the guys in the locker room would want to play Alabama.
I'm not arguing that, but go find me. What have we had, 3 years of this so far? So how many of those 12 teams had 2 losses?
None of them.
None of them
so
did.
There you go.
You won't get any 2-loss teams till they expand it to 6 or 8.
So
but you know what?
You're leaving yourself no margin for error.
But if you're a championship caliber team,
you have to have that mentality.
You have to say, bring it on. You can't think, oh gosh, we might lose 2. We got to be. Yep. You have to say, bring it on. We are a great team.
Yeah, that's my mentality because that's how it was when we were in school.
Yeah.
I mean, our non-conference games, we played, Maryland,
UCLA.
Notre Dame, UCLA. All type of big schools. We never played the MAC schools or anything like that. So you have to have that championship mentality.
Players at these big-time programs want to play those games.
That's why you go there.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike reminding you, if you want to get in touch with us, tweet us at Mike and Mike through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Nothing makes a summer birthday or anniversary more magical than 1-800-Flowers.com. And right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for just $29.99, you're going to get another dozen free. Just go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN.
All right, we have a few more minutes here with Herbie and Des from College Game Days. I want to fly through as many things as I can get in. Quickly, there was huge quarterbacks in college football this season that all the NFL scouts and all the NFL fans are drooling over, and potentially a bunch of teams in the NFL are tanking over. And the first name on the list is Sam Darnold. Des, if people are talking about him on a level as a prospect with Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck and John Elway, does he belong on that level?
I think it's too early to tell. I'm not a guy who likes to jump the gun. I mean, he had a fantastic year last season. There's no doubt about that. What I love about him is he throws with great anticipation, and his teammates accept him for who he is, and they absolutely love him. And that's what you want as a quarterback.
He reminds me of an Andrew Luck type. He's athletic enough, not overly athletic where you're going to run a dual threat guy, but he's athletic enough like you see the great NFL quarterbacks buying a little bit of time in the pocket, getting reestablished, and making a good throw downfield. And he's got guts. Some of the throws that he makes, there are very few guys in the college game that have the willingness to make the throws into those small pockets that he does. And 9 times out of 10, it works out for him.
The big thing we talk about now is quarterbacks that play in a system that doesn't really fit the NFL. You see Kansas City trades up for Mahomes in a Big 12, and name me the last Big 12 quarterback that did anything in the NFL.
Yeah.
But you go, Andy Reid took him, so he sees something, and Andy's a hell of a coach.
Yeah.
These quarterbacks we're talking about, Rosen, Allen, Darnold, they all seem to be decent-sized guys who play in systems that could translate quicker to the NFL. Do you see that as well, as far as from the system that they play in?
I really do, yeah. And I think that when you look at a guy like Rosen, he's a kid who came into UCLA with so much hype. But the thing that I love about him is he can make all the throws. It's not about his athleticism. It's about his arm strength, his arm talent, and how quick he can process information and read defenses.
And I think Jed Fish coming in as an offensive coordinator, he's had 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
This is more of an NFL-friendly system, and I think it fits his skill set. I think Rosen, if he's healthy, he could have a great year.
I'd love to do 4 hours on the next topic with you guys, but we'll get through as many of these as we can quickly. I'll just name a conference. You tell me right off the top of your head who's the team to beat in that conference. Herbie, 3 of us at least. The Big Ten is where we all went to school. So starting with the Big Ten.
That's Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan right there, all in one division. I think Wisconsin has a chance to run the table in the West, along with your team, Northwestern. I think it'll come down to those two. Yeah. But I give Ohio State an edge because the game against Penn State's in Columbus. I would say Ohio State.
Des?
I think Penn State is a team that you have to keep an eye on, but I agree with Herbie. Watch out for Wisconsin. That team is going to be very dangerous. I like the Badgers.
It is the normal bigs, but I am the Wisconsin Northwestern, how that's going to
How
end
about
up.
that game?
Exactly.
He'll
Yes,
be a mess.
sir.
He'll be a wreck. He'll be a wreck that week.
Exactly.
And that one is in Madison this year, unfortunately. Big 12. Anybody? Who wants it?
Well, I mean, that's what we're going. Oklahoma State.
I'm going Oklahoma State. I'm going Cowboys.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone's like talking about Oklahoma, but without Bob Stoops, there's a big question mark.
You think there'll be a drop off because of that? 33-year-old Lincoln Riley in there?
Especially going up to Columbus that early in the season. You don't know what that can do to the psyche of a team if they get, their butts kicked again.
I'm a little bit on the other end. I think Lincoln Riley is going to do a great job. I just think that there's enough parity there. I'm going to go with Gary Patterson and TCU. I think all the talk about Oklahoma State, I think Kenny Hill and TCU get it done in the Big 12.
Everyone immediately thinks of Alabama when I say SEC. Are they clearly the team to beat in the SEC?
I think Auburn's the only team that can give them a challenge with the new quarterback that they have, Stidham, coming in.
Yeah, I agree with Kirby. I think that Auburn's a team, but go ahead.
I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing what Jalen Hurts does this year.
Yeah.
I really am, to see how his role – that's the one team we've seen winning national championships without the quarterback being the most important position. But this guy is a first-year starter, and what he does a second year is going to be interesting to me.
ACC.
I've got Florida State. I think Florida State's going to lose potentially to an Alabama week 1, but I still think they get into the playoff. I still think that they're going to be a team that wins the ACC and makes it into the playoff.
I'm going to go on the limb. I like the Canes.
There you
go.
the
Canes. They're returning their front seven. They have incredible depth on the front defensive line, and they just named their starting quarterback, and Mark Richt loves this guy. So I think the Canes, you have to watch out for Miami.
I'm going to go out on a limb, too, with you. That front seven, they had freshman linebackers
all
playing.
All three were freshmen a year ago. Yes,
defense,
exactly.
D-line, so
defense is really good.
Nobody takes the defending champion Clemson. Finally, quickly, Pac-12.
I think SC. I mean, they got a brutal schedule, but I think Washington and SC, but Stanford with David Shaw, I think, is back this year to being better.
I'm going with the Cardinal. Watch out for Stanford. No one's talking about them. They're under the radar. Watch out for David Shaw and Stanford.
This week.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
About that. I don't want to pick Stanford or USC. They're both playing Notre Dame. So
these guys are coming to your city. It's always a pleasure. Have a terrific start to your season. We'll be checking in soon.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Joining us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line from Sunday Night Football and Pro Football Focus, our friend Cris Collinsworth is back with us. How are you, Cris?
I'm doing great. It's good to feel the love emanating from your show already. This is fantastic.
I mean, I'm trying to support my wife, and I'm getting mocked for it, Cris. I mean, I don't understand.
It's unbelievable. I want you to know, as a fellow domer, I am supporting them, and not even as big a way as you are. I'm sitting in my basement cheering them on, but I think it's fantastic. Good luck to Cris, and I'm sure you're taking plenty of trash for it already.
It's fantastic as long as someone else is doing it.
When he's rolling along alongside them tomorrow in his golf cart, that will be one of the genuinely hilarious things that we will ever see.
It's so romantic when you break it down. It really is.
Well, that's the kind of man he is. Okay.
He is, yes.
Let's go as big picture as we can to start with, because to me, the most interesting storyline going into this season is that the Patriots feel like the most prohibitive favorite I can remember in football in a really long time. It almost feels like they're the Golden State Warriors. And all this centers around a quarterback who, as brilliant as he is going to be 40 years old. What is your guess, and we're all just guessing here, of how long he can keep going at this level? Because Mike and I have been going back and forth on this for the last, basically for the entirety of the summer. The Patriots keeping Jimmy Garoppolo, I thought this year was telling about Bill Belichick's vision of that franchise's future, and exactly when that future begins, at this point, I guess, is anybody's guess. What is your perception or your perspective on Brady at 40 and how long he can continue to be what he has been?
Well, he wasn't bad in the clutch at the Super Bowl last year, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that he loves selling his Fountain of Youth products, that TB12 and all that he's doing. He'll talk to us about it all the time. But it's how do you deny it? I mean, here's a guy that we see quarterbacks all the time sort of fall off the cliff when they get somewhere close to this age, and he just keeps getting it done. And it's sort of interesting when you talk to Tom about some of this. He goes, well, I hope I'm a little better than some of these 22 and 24-year-old young quarterbacks that are coming out. He's seen it all. He's done it all. But to come back in that game the way that he did was one of the most remarkable things. I mean, you think about where we were at about the start of the third quarter of the Super Bowl. I was at the game. I always just go and sit in the stands when I'm not calling it. And all these Falcons fans are taking selfies with big groups, and they're partying. They're not even watching the game anymore. It's 28-3 at this point. And I'm looking at these guys, and I'm kind of laughing a little bit. And I was like, well, you guys haven't seen too many Tom Brady games in the I go, this is not quite over yet. Okay, maybe it is. But the number of things that had to fall into place for that team to come back and for Tom Brady to hit all of those throws and all of those two-point conversions was just one of the most remarkable things I'd ever seen. But the idea that we're talking about the Patriots now as one of the greatest teams ever and all that, at 28-3, think how different the narrative was. Mm-hmm. At 28-3, Tom Brady had thrown a pick six. Now the Patriots in the Super Bowls that they've been in were going to be about 500 instead of this dominant team. Not only did they get beaten this game, they're getting blown out 28-3. And so the narrative went from that to they're the greatest team of all time, who could possibly beat them this season, and nobody's talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Here's the Falcons, a young, up-and-coming team that had them beat. I mean, really just was physically beating them and just ran out of gas. That defense had to defend 94 plays, and they were just shot. I was watching them coming over to the sideline, all bent over, and they couldn't breathe, and it was over. By the time they got to overtime, it was over.
So let's go to the other side of that. Now you have a team in the Patriots, you have a quarterback they trust mentally. They know he's going to be there. They feel good about it, and he has production as well. Now be a veteran in the locker room, Cris, of the Cleveland Browns. And it looks like the rookie Deshaun Kaiser will start game 3 of the preseason, the dress rehearsal, if he does well enough. Probably be the starter. And if he looks good now, that's fine. But we all know rookie quarterbacks, they will go through their struggles. So take us now to the mentality of veterans in that locker room, the Joe Thomases of the world, in knowing we're starting the season with a rookie quarterback who we know is going to make rookie mistakes at some point.
Yeah, well, you and I know Deshaun awfully well. We saw a lot of him at Notre Dame, and he's like another son to me. He's been at my house a lot of times, and he was roommates with both of my sons at Notre Dame, so I know him well. And so it's a little hard for me not to be a bit biased. But I'll tell you this. I'm pretty good at watching film and being able to just see it for what it is. I could do it in my own career. I kind of knew when the end was coming. And I thought physically it really wasn't even too – I just thought he was the best quarterback the Browns had to offer. I watched the entire tape for those games, and I really feel like that, despite the fact that, yes, he's going to make those rookie mistakes, that if you're the Cleveland Browns, you have now committed to this new approach, this analytics, and you're going to do it a different way. So you kind of caught a break, to get somebody as talented and physically skilled as Deshaun in the second round of the draft, you kind of catch a break. But you have to keep in mind that the next draft is completely filled with quarterback prospects that everybody's really excited about. So if you let Deshaun sit on the bench this year and you don't find out exactly what he is, you're now going to go into that draft and you're going to go, boy, there's some really good other players. Do I go ahead and hang with Deshaun? I haven't really seen him in a game. Or do I draft one of these other kids? Now I've got 2 of them on my team. So from my standpoint, I can only tell you what I would do. I would play him. I would play him like Troy Aikman. If he goes 1-15, I don't care. But at the end of the day, I have to know what I think of Deshaun Kaiser and then make a decision in the next draft.
Very interesting point and a very good one. Mike and Cris Collinsworth again, Sunday Night Football on NBC and Pro Football Focus. The big moment of the preseason this past weekend, of course, was, and I happened to be sitting in a restaurant in New York City when this happened, when Odell Beckham went down. And for a minute there, it looked like he might not get up at all. I just wonder what thoughts went through your mind when you saw that play. I've heard so much reaction to it, from should Odell be even on the field in these preseason games without a contract, to was that a dirty hit, should it have been considered a dirty hit, and all the different discussion that has surrounded it. What was your takeaway from that play?
Well, you're playing with 90 guys, right, of whom 53 are going to make the team. The other, 30 or so guys, 37 guys, they're going to do anything they can to make an impression in the National Football League. Now, I'm not saying anything about the young man who did it. I think he was on the Browns. I'm not making a point. But you're playing superstar players out there against guys that likely aren't going to be in the league, or at least about half of them in some cases. And it can be dangerous. Most veteran players, Mike, I'll let you chime in on this as well, but most veteran players, their number one goal of preseason is to get the heck out of there alive. And from the coaching staff, that's getting to be more and more of the story. The interesting thing is, what are the alternatives? The alternatives are, let's go to 18 games, but they're still going to want 2 preseason games on it. So that doesn't really help the players all that much. Now, what would be interesting is if they offered up, let's go to 18 games and no preseason games. I think one of the great advantages that college football has over the NFL is that opening day is opening day. We have not seen these teams practice, scrimmage, preseason, nothing. And I think opening day for college football is way more interesting than opening day for the NFL for that simple reason. Would the NFL ever consider not doing that? And I think the answer, which I'll always come back to, which is always the answer, is money, obviously, because they can sell those other 2 preseason games, but they also have to sell the NFL Players Association. So if they came back with 18 games and no preseason games, would that have any interest? I don't know. I think it certainly would for the networks. So, but they're a long way from it. They're going to scrimmage. If you're going to start the way the colleges do, you're going to have scrimmages. And if you have scrimmages, you might as well put them in an NFL stadium and charge your season ticket holders and make millions of dollars off of it. So it's a complicated one.
Yeah, it is. I do think preseason games will go down. We've had a couple of coaches on this week, and they seem to more and more, and we're seeing it more and more, like these where you practice together for 2 or 3 days and then play the game. You can get a lot more accomplished in a practice. I wonder if we'll actually see more of that as we bring preseason games down. And you're right about preseason games. The greatest line you heard as a player was you walked off after whatever series and the coach said, all right, you're out for the rest of the night. You're going, thank God I got through that game. I'm one game closer.
No doubt. My goal, I can remember in the first preseason game, was always I wanted to catch one pass, get hit not too hard, and get my butt out of here. The one time Sam White auctioned off a play in the Hall of Fame game at my charity thing that we had that year. And so somebody got to draw up the play. So Sam put it in the newspaper. So, in the Hall of Fame game, I was only going to play 4 plays. So part of this play was I'm going to go in motion and do a swing route up the sideline. So I'm sitting there, and I'm going in motion. I do this little swing route, and, of course, they're going to throw the ball to me. The free safety for whoever it was obviously read the newspaper that day, came over and broke my nose, just completely blew me up. I was like, that was the most painful charity thing I'd ever done in my life. But, you get in those games, and all you want to do is just get the heck to the regular season. And then some rookies like Leonard Fournette, who made the statement, this year about how this is not that fast, right, and this is, not that big a deal, whatever the case may be. I remember going in my rookie year, from that last preseason game to the first regular season game, and all I could think was it was like somebody hit fast forward on a recorder kind of thing, and that these people are out here trying to kill each other. Preseason is a joke. I mean, it just is. God bless them. It's great for the people trying to make their teams. Yep. But if you think the veteran players out there are playing the same speed on opening day that they're playing in the preseason, it's just not the case.
Yeah, preseason's for the back end of the roster guys trying to make the team. Cris, two-part question here. The whole Colin Kaepernick situation from last year and where we are this year with players still kneeling and some players kneeling, other players having their arm around them, just where it's all going. First, from your side of it, when you're going to do a game, when you're having your meetings, and you know there's maybe a player on both teams or one of the team that's going to do this, what do you guys, because we talk about it all the time, how much do we talk about it on the show? Where do we go with it? What do you guys talk about? How much do you guys want to get into it, actually get into it, on just what's happening with the sidelines for your broadcast?
We're always split. I think Al and I are two guys not short of opinion, right? And so you want to get into it. You definitely want to get into it. And I think my simple answer is I'm listening to these guys. These are not guys that are a bunch of dopes. I mean, these are thoughtful guys that are, Malcolm Jenkins and Michael Bennett, and then you see their teammate Justin Britt and Chris Long and all these guys sort of standing up for them. They don't want something bad. They want something better for America. And so I don't look at them in any sort of negative way whatsoever. I appreciate the teams that try and do everything together, link arms or do whatever the case may be. But this is, it's difficult on everybody, because the minute you open your mouth about this thing, something you said can be taken the wrong way. All of a sudden you could be in the national news, and I firmly believe that people watch football games because they're ready for a break from all the politics. Now the politics are inside the NFL game. So if Al and I start pontificating on the politics behind their decision to do that, people aren't really getting what they want either. If they want that, they can go over to CNN or Fox or whatever the case may be. So there's a real balance for us trying to not put our head in the sand and appreciate what's going on, but also understand that, there's a million different political views out there as to what's going on. But I wish I could emphasize even more that these young men in the NFL, they're bright guys. They're well educated. They're well informed. I can remember the difference in my locker room 100 years ago, but these guys today are, whether it's social media or whatever, they are socially engaged, and they're not just protesting. They're in the communities. They're out doing great things in their communities. So when I see them take a knee, I try to pay attention, and I try to talk to them about it and see what I can learn. I mean, Richard Sherman's story is an unbelievable one. I mean, his mom basically kept gang members fed. Like, she would bring all of them into her home and feed them and take care of them and love them like a mom. And in return, the gang members refused to let Richard Sherman and his brother in the gang. That was their way of paying them back. And so, I'm a guy that grew up in a middle-class home. My dad was my high school principal. And when you hear stories where some of these young men have come from and what they've lived through and, being shot at and, all the different things that come on, they know things about the world that I don't know. They've lived lives that I haven't lived. And so when we get a chance to meet these young people in production meetings, I love picking their brain. I love learning what they're thinking. And I think if we all, is it frustrating? Yeah, I get it. Am I ever going to take a knee for the national anthem? I just couldn't, because I know the history of what it took to get that flag flying up there and the number of people who died defending it and defending the right to take a knee during the national anthem and all that kind of stuff. So I couldn't do it. But I want to learn what they're telling me. I want to listen. And so that's kind of my take on it.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Can I leave?
Yes, you can. You absolutely can leave if you want to, because this is the guy that caused The butt photo to be taken.
Whatever.
And for the second consecutive season, he is the starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos. He's my favorite quarterback. Trevor Siemian is back with us on Mike and Mike. Good morning, Trevor.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Doing well, Trevor.
Well, I'm doing better now that we're talking to you. Trevor from Northwestern University, and his second consecutive season. Take us through this. Golic doesn't like it, because when you guys beat them in South Bend your senior year is the reason that Golic had to take the legendary butt photo, which is one of the great moments in the history of anything.
Whatever.
But that's neither here nor there. So take us through. You come in this year. And look, you know what the situation is. You were a 7th-round draft pick. They drafted Paxton Lynch in the first round with the intention, ultimately, of him becoming the starter. So what is the mentality like for you as you come in for what was a quarterback competition that you have now won, and you are the starting quarterback? Take us through that.
Yeah, well, for me, it was kind of easy the whole way through. I kind of finished my first year playing, and, your first year, you do some good things, but you screw up a lot. And I was really, when I came back for OTAs, I wanted to focus on myself and kind of my growth as a player. And I knew I kind of did some things well, and I knew there was a bunch of stuff I needed to work on. So when I got back, I knew there was, we'd be competing, obviously, but I really wanted to get better as a player. So I thought to myself, if I take care of all these things and I just keep growing and developing, I think, things will kind of sort themselves out.
Along those lines, you said you knew you'd be competing. Was there any trepidation on your part, and what was the conversation? You get a new coach who inherits a first-round quarterback in Paxton Lynch, so I would imagine there has to be some wondering on your mind, are they going to give this guy the first shot at the job? So what was that initial conversation with your new head coach about that situation?
Yeah, I think, even going back to the end of last year, there was a lot of transparency. So, I wasn't caught off guard by anything. And, I always joke with people, when they said I'd be competing, or coach said I'd be competing, I said, somewhere in the dictionary next to sports, I'm sure competition shows up right next to that word. So I don't think anybody in our building is scared of it. And, I think, we have competition all across our roster, so I think it's only better for the Denver Broncos.
Trevor Siemian, quarterback, Denver Broncos, with us here on Mike and Mike. And I saw that you sent your old buddy Peyton Manning back to talk to the Northwestern football team. He was there recently, and his first words were, "Trevor sent me." But, you did get to learn from one of the greats of all time. It is worth sort of circling back to. If you could pick one thing you picked up from Peyton Manning that is the most meaningful for you now as you prepare for your second season as a starter, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I could talk to you forever. I know you don't have enough time about that, but I think the main thing was I got to see Peyton at a time when, he wasn't doing so well, or at least statistically he had injury. And he wasn't necessarily lighting the world on fire, like he usually had previously in his career. So I got to see him kind of when things weren't really going his way, and how he handled the locker room, and what kind of leader he was when things weren't going his way. So for me, that was really special. I think he's the best quarterback to ever play, but seeing kind of how he handled a little bit of adversity was cool for me to see.
I mean, you're a starting quarterback in the NFL now. You came in as a 7th-round pick. Even with all that's gone on, do you feel secure in your position in the NFL?
Well, to be blunt, no. I mean, I don't ever feel secure, and I don't think, for the rest of my career, I hope I never feel secure. I think the NFL, and I've only been playing 2 years, so from what I've seen, you got to earn your job every day, every week, every game, every chance you get. So. That's my mentality. That was my mentality when I came in as a rookie. And, hopefully I get to play a few more years, and that'll be my mentality the whole way through.
So when you start as a young quarterback like you do last year, you talk about the great defense and you want to build around a running game. Is that still the philosophy? Or because you had that year under your belt, is there, hey, we're going to give this guy a little more freedom to do some of the things that we think he can do?
Yeah, I think you obviously have to be able to do both. I think the one thing you see is towards, November, December, January, those teams that can really run the ball well and play kind of a physical game, start pulling away. But there's no doubt as a quarterback, you got to be able to make some critical throws down the stretch. And we're going to be balanced, no doubt. There's no way we're going to have Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders and all those guys and hand it off 50 times a game. So I'm excited about our offense. I think, we've made a lot of progress, and just excited about it going forward.
Talking to Trevor Siemian, quarterback of the Broncos. Along that line, now I don't know how you guys do it in practice, but when you have the one padded practice and you have to go, when you go ones against ones, you have a pretty tough defense over there. So how has that been working for your offenses compared from a frustration level to having success against that defense?
Sure. I mean, yeah, we stub our toe quite a bit, but, I mean, there's times we get them too. So we always say we're lucky to be competing against those guys every day because it's only going to make us better. I mean, throwing against Chris Harris, Akib, feeling the pass rush, going against Brandon Marshall and all those guys, TJ. I mean, we're lucky to have them, and I think it gets us ready to play when we get going to the real thing.
And, the defense obviously pretty popular with that guy Von Miller as well. Tell the story. It's a cool one. When you're at a sporting goods store giving some shoes away and the kids were asking, why didn't you bring Von Miller? I mean, that's got to make you feel real good, huh?
Yeah, it's good to know, who the guy is. But I'm not as dumb as I look. I know, Von's the guy. Von's the most popular guy on our team. So I was just trying to fill in as best I could.
Leave it to kids to keep you humble, huh?
And
right.
then I'd be remiss if I did not just get a quick thought from you on Northwestern football. We had Kirk Herbstreit and Des Howard in here a little bit earlier talking about how, this is setting up right now for a very good season, bringing a lot of good players back. They have one huge game early in the year at Wisconsin that if we could find a way to win that, I mean, legitimately could be talking about a team that could compete in our conference or in our division in the Big Ten. What are your thoughts, and how closely can you keep an eye on what's happening in Evanston?
Oh, I keep up quite a bit, and I'm still in touch with a bunch of those guys. But, to me, it kind of feels like where the program's at now is, I think it was my sophomore or junior year, we had a lot of momentum going and coming off a 10-win season. That's kind of where it feels like they're at now. I think this is a big, big season to kind of see if we can take that next step. And, I don't think there's any doubt that they will because, I mean, you got a quarterback coming back that's pretty good. The defense is always good. Fitz always has those guys playing hard. So I'm really, really excited to keep up with those guys this year.
I know when I was playing, we always had massive bets when colleges played against colleges.
Yeah.
I would have bets with Reggie White when Notre Dame played Tennessee. You guys still do that? I mean, is it done around your team when you're facing off again and you have players from the other teams on your side?
We'll bet some Gatorade bottles or something. So. But, yeah, I mean, guys, as you can imagine, guys keep up with their teams pretty closely, and it's a lot of